Hey, everybody, this is Kurt Molly here with a good friend of mine, Mr. Ron White. So I've known Ron actually the very first live event I ever attended for network marketing, motivation, really just a convention outside of the business that I was employed in when I started my own business. Go to my very first event. This was in Dallas, Texas. It's called the More Heart Than Talent event. Now there's this guy outside with his suit the very first day, and he's shaking people's hands. And he's just like, hi, my name's Ron, what's your name? Hi, my name's Ron, what's your name? He doesn't really say anything, that's about it. Okay, some people just do that at networking events, totally cool. But then the second day, the guy walked on stage. That was Ron. And he's like, hey, everybody, if I happen to shake your hand and ask you your name, will you please stand up? And out of, if I remember, about 300 people, it was like 200 or 225 or 250 people, most of the audience stood up. Ron's like, hey, because of the lights, I think I'm going to get most of the people, but hang on, John, Cynthia, Samantha, Itai, and he goes through with almost a 98% accuracy, almost a 99, just a small enunciation, and then, oh, that is the last person. And one of the things I'll never forget is one, that, but then the second thing, Ron goes, this isn't a parlor trick. I can show you how to do the exact same thing. Now, Ron, I can remember exactly the exercise that you gave us inside of that auditorium on where to peg things, how to start thinking things. I was so excited. I ran out. I bought all of your products that you had at the time. There were CDs. You didn't have tapes anymore, but there were CDs, a bunch of stuff that I got. Memory cards. It was great. And then over the years, I watched Ron, oh my goodness, appear on Nat Geo, Superhuman, lots of different TV shows. It's not uncommon to be flipping through cable, the Discovery Channel, Nat Geo, and see him pop up somewhere. The other thing is, though, too, he's an international memory champion where literally can memorize a deck of cards. Actually, sorry, I take that back. 5 decks of cards, front and back. Actually was trained by somebody in the military underwater how to memorize cards. That's a whole other story we'll get into asking. But one of the things that I remember most about Ron that I really appreciate is you have an amazing heart. You're just an amazing human. I remember going to a Jeffrey Combs event, one of the last events I went to with Jeffrey Combs, and you were sitting in the back and you had this binder out. And I asked you, well, what's the binder? And you said that you were memorizing names. I go, memorizing names for the people in the Afghanistan war who have fallen, the U.S. soldiers. You've memorized the names, and you've traveled all over the United States. You've been on news stations. You've been at ballparks, writing the names of for memory, where family members have come up, other soldiers have come up. Ron, you're an amazing individual with an amazing memory, a great brain, a huge heart. And I just want to say thank you for being here. And I cannot wait to help a whole bunch of people by getting more people to know you, sir. So first of all, thank you for being here.
Oh wow, man! Well, I gotta say that's one of the best introductions I've ever had. So, so that was pretty good. I appreciate that, and we are friends, and that's one reason that you know so much about the introduction. But I appreciate that introduction; it was very nice. It's also an honor to know you and count you as a friend. I know you're helping a lot of people, and you know a lot about marketing and business, and so I always enjoy learning from you. And it's odd that you mentioned Jeffrey Combs. I just watched one of his videos last night. So, but I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the very first internet marketing video I ever did is I was watching Mark Hoverson, and I was sitting in the audience, and I'm like, oh my goodness. And I posted that. That event was pivotal for me. And I just like to show other people pivotal moments, kind of like this. Like, you know, the economy is really crazy right now. I know you travel all over the world speaking, and right now you're at home for a while, like lots of other people are. And right now it's kind of a crazy economy, but there's an opportunity to really sharpen our skills out there. So do you mind talking about this for a couple of minutes? The way that you do your memory stuff, again, one of my favorite memories is it's not a parlor trick. Anyone can do this. Do you mind telling the story and kind of talking about that for a couple of minutes?
The story about how
just memory, how other people can do this. And it's not necessarily a part, and I know that we'll get in more of the context. But again, when I saw you memorize all those names, I was blown away. And you're like, hey, everyone, let me show you just a couple of points on how you can do the same. Would you mind talking about that for just a minute?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I think, you know, I just I did a Zoom call maybe 2 or 3 hours ago with a guy that, you know, it's when I look at him memorize, I'm like, oh my God, how do you do that? And so it's like, people see me memorize and they're like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? And then I look at this guy and I'm like, my gosh, I know what you're doing, but how do you do it so fast? And really what he and I just talked about today, and it's true, and it's what I've been talking about for 29 years, is that there is no special ability for the most part. I mean, some people, you know, may be born with 160 IQs, but I will stress this: IQ doesn't correlate to memory, you know, so it is a little bit different. Not always. It is a bit of a different thing. But it is a learned system. I was 18 years old. I was a telemarketer. I was making phone calls every day. Hey, can we come clean your chimney? I worked for a company that cleaned chimneys. And I called this guy one day and he said, man, we don't want our chimney cleaned. We're trying to sell our house. And then I said, well, if you're trying to sell your house, you should have a clean chimney. And that was just me, an 18-year-old kid, trying to close a sale to get I literally think 29 years ago, my commission was $2. I literally think it was like $2 or $3 if I set that appointment. And he said, man, we were just talking and I was overcoming his objections. And he said, look, man, I don't want my chimney cleaned, but I do want a good telemarketer. Will you go to work for me? And then he told me he sold memory training seminars.
Oh.
So in July of 1991, I went to work for him as a memory training telemarketer. But that's such an important part of what we're talking about here because, I've held the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards in the United States. And you've seen me memorize 100 or however many names were in an audience that time. And people think that I have a natural ability. I don't. I met a guy in 1991 who taught me a system. I've spent the last several decades teaching people exactly what he taught me. And I'm not sure how I'll go as deep into this as you want.
Great. This is really good, Ron.
Okay. So it is, it's a system on visualizing information. It's been around about 2,500 years. It's called the method of loci. But here is the story of how this came to be. And I don't know if this story is true or not, but I saw it on the internet, so I'm going to assume that it
must be true.
Yeah, no. Actually, I kind of make that joke, but I read a book about 3 weeks ago by Cicero, who lived 2,000 years ago. And he told this story in that book 2,000 years ago before the internet. So it was like, whoa, this is really true.
This could be real. It could be real.
Right. If not, it's been a fake story for 2,000 years. But here's the story. There's this guy, and his name is Simonides. And Simonides is in a building. It's a banquet hall. It's filled with people. The roof collapses. It kills everybody in the room, except Simonides, because he was actually went in the room and went out, and then it collapsed. So then they said, Simonides, we need to identify the bodies. We need to say who was who. We can't. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, Kurt was sitting over there. Steve was sitting over there. Brian was sitting over there. Karen was sitting over. He identified them based upon where they were sitting in a room. And then he goes back to his house and the light bulb kind of goes off in his head. He's like, whoa, I just remembered 30 people based on a position in a room, which is not how I memorized names when you saw me 15 years ago. It's a little bit variation of that because I met you guys in the hall. I didn't know where you were going to be sitting.
Yeah.
But it is the origin of the system. And then he thought, wow, I wonder if I could use locations in rooms to memorize anything. If I'm a kid in school, could I take data and place it around a room and recall it in my mind, in my imagination, not in real life? If I'm a business person, could I go to a internet marketing conference, sit there in that internet marketing conference and listen to the speaker on stage, and as the speaker's talking, imagine what he's saying and place it in rooms in my brain? And so recall data that way. So that's essentially what I do. And I'll talk for 60 more seconds on this, and I don't want to go too far off of this. But here's the general concept. You see my backdrop here. Let's imagine that Albert Einstein is number 1, Da Vinci is number 2, this microphone is number 3, and you can't see it, but there's a table here. Table here is number 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I tell everybody to do is number locations all through your house. So you know, in your place there in Austin, you would number 30 places. And here's 1, 2, 3, 4 in my condo in Fort Worth. Now, you have something that you want to memorize. You imagine it around the room in the sequence of the furniture. So let's say that I'm a student and I want to memorize the presidents of the United States. The first president is George Washington. I imagine a washing machine, and a washing machine clothes start flying out of Albert Einstein's space. In other words, I take whatever I want to remember. You know what? I don't even really like that example, Kurt. Let's do something else here. Let's see money, because people want to make money right now. Let's see money flying out of Albert Einstein's eyes. So I'm going to ask you, what's flying out of Albert Einstein's eyes?
Money.
Now I want you to see a clock, like a cuckoo clock. I want you to see a cuckoo bird coming out of his face. Cuckoo, cuckoo. See, maybe his arms are the arms on a clock. So what are we imagining over here?
Clock.
Right here, I want you to imagine a cell phone. Somebody's calling us right now. A cell phone is right here. So what's right here?
Cell phone.
So what's here?
Money.
Here.
Clock.
Here.
Cell phone.
Last one. What's your favorite sports team?
Huskers.
The what?
The Nebraska Huskers. They
Oh
play sport.
yeah. I should have known that. So you got the Nebraska football team right here on this. So what's on the table right here?
Huskers, Nebraska football team.
So we're going to stop at 4, but you get the idea. If we had 20 pieces of furniture numbered here in my condo, I could give you 20 words, and just as easily you could say money, clock, phone, team. Now, here is where this all comes together, and then I'll shut up. But here's where this all comes together. You have to give a speech tomorrow, and the speech is on how to make money, and you're speaking for 100 people, and you're nervous because you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get up there and I'm going to forget what I have to say. Well, don't stress out about that anymore. Write out the 10 or 15 points you want to talk about. The first point you want to talk about is how to make more money. So you imagine that on the first piece of furniture at your house. The second thing you want to talk about is I need to manage my time more effectively to be successful. So you man a clock here. Then you get up in front of the room the next day, no notes in your hand, and you just think back to your house. Hey guys, my name's Ron. I want to talk to you today about how to make more money. The first key to making more money is managing our time effectively, being good time managers. We want to be good communicators, whether it's on the phone or in person. But most importantly, we want to work together as a team. And you give a 20, 30-minute speech by thinking of your house and using no notes. That is the Cliff Notes version of how I do what I do.
So you guys will see a link up here up on the screen multiple times as I'm talking to Ron, because I just want to support Ron as much as possible. Like I said, I bought all of his stuff at one time, and I'm like, this is great. It's amazing. I did ask you one time, like, Ron, I already bought all your stuff. What should I buy next? And you're like, buy it twice. And I'm like, Good point. I really like that. So you can go to thebelt.live/memory, thebelt.live/memory. It'll take you over to Black Belt Memory. Now, a couple of quick things, then I want you to talk about the product for a second. So a couple of memories that I have from you when you were telling the story originally, this is when I dream in stories, so I remember this. I remember on stage that you had actually said, and you can tell me if I'm making this up or not, that in college that you had a college, if I remember, a counselor or advisor that essentially you had only seen 2 or 3 times and you remembered your name each time, and that really stood out, which essentially was like, imagine if you could remember your clients' names and even their kids' names, and if you haven't talked to them even a couple of years, you were able to say, hey, how is Bobby or Sue? How powerful would that be for relationships? And I'll never forget that. And I've used that, and people say so many times, I can't believe you remember that story, but it's because of the way that you taught me on how to tell stories in my brain to make sure I ask these questions. The other memory I had of you too is you've actually taught kids this method to memorize their entire all presidents just by based off the stuff in their room. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And first of all, great story. I've stopped telling that story, but not for any conscious reason. I think it's just, you ever watch or listen to tapes of you speak? You've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this a long time. I will watch videos of me speaking 15, 20 years ago, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot that story.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a good story. I'll put it back in my system now. But and yes, I do teach this to kids all the time for the President's United States. It started about 10 years ago. I was dating a girl. She had a 6-year-old daughter, and her daughter wanted to memorize the presidents. And this she was just the cutest little girl. And so it all kind of just worked together perfectly. And you'll see what I mean by that. But she wanted to memorize the president. So I said, okay, Kaylee. And I took her to the room and I said, Kaylee, right here, I want you to imagine a washing machine and the clothes are flying out. I said, Kaylee, what's there? And she said, washing machine for Washington. And then I said, Kaylee, the next president is Adams. I want you to see a dam over here. Imagine you're swimming in the water behind the dam. So this little 6-year-old little girl goes over here and she's swimming and then she says, a dam Adams. Then she goes right here. This was in her house, but, using it for my example 10 years later. I said, the president is Jefferson. And I said, what does that sound like? She said, it sounds like Jefferson, like a chef you cook. So we imagined she was eating food over here. A chef was cooking her food. But here's the basic concept of this system. Whatever it is you want to recall, and you can be 6 years old or you can be 66 years old. All you have to do is take the data you want to recall, create a picture for it, and then visualize it in a location that you know really well, like her house. And the reason I say, well, she was really cute, so it was perfect, because what happened is we spent about 60 to 90 minutes doing this, and then she ran through the house, and it was 44 presidents at the time. She said all 44 presidents, and I was like, and she was just so cute. I mean, it was so cute. So I was like, I said, Kaylee, can we do this one more time? But can I film it? And she said, you can film it for $1. So talk about the best marketing dollar I've ever spent in my life. I gave her that dollar and we put it on YouTube.
Do you still have that video?
I do.
We should talk about this later, about running that as an ad.
Okay.
That would be amazing. That would be good. So we'll get to that in a minute before I get too far off track. Yeah, that's all we need. That right now, because so many people are consuming content, and which you can teach kids and just, well, everyone is great. Well, do you mind just talking for just a minute about your Black Belt Memory product? So if people go to the link that they see on their screen, what are they going to find?
Well, you know, you do jujitsu, I do jujitsu, and a few years ago, I was sitting around with one of my friends, and we were talking about another guy who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he said, you know, Ron, Paul is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You, and he pointed to me, he said, you were a black belt in memory. And I was like, that's my new product, Black Belt Memory. But here's what it is. In jiu-jitsu or any martial arts, you start out as a white belt, and then you earn your next belt, your next belt, your next belt, until when you finish you get the best at Taekwondo or whatever, or jiu-jitsu, you're a black belt. So Black Belt Memory is that concept. You'll start out as a white belt, and you will learn some basic memory techniques. You'll watch 4 or 5 videos. I try to keep them 10 minutes each. Then you take a little quiz, an online quiz. And the quiz, you're going to pass the quiz if you do the videos. It's not difficult. We got 12-year-old kids, 11-year-old kids, 10-year-old kids doing this. And then you take the quiz, you get your yellow belt. And then when you get your yellow belt, you learn the next level of memory training. You know, you're going to learn how to remember names and faces. And then you learn that, and then you get tested on it. Then you learn the next level. You learn how to give more in-depth speeches without notes, or memorize scripture or poems or quotes or numbers. And you take a quiz, and then you go to the next level. And you just keep advancing until you learned everything you want to learn about memory. And when you get done, you get a black belt in memory, and I mail you a certificate. It's in Japanese. You know, and it says you're a black belt in memory. It's really cool.
Oh, that's great.
But it's an online course, about 40, 50 videos right now.
That is great. That is great. So a couple questions for you, sir. There are 3 different types of people who are watching this. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-interview. There are people who are just looking for some type of opportunity. And I'm thinking being able to memorize names and memorize some stories, like, oh my goodness, there's a lot of opportunity out there. And especially for people that dive in deep with their kids with your content, I think is great. So people who are just kind of hanging out, I don't want to say looking for something to do, but to sharpen their axe, what advice do you have? I mean, obviously get into Black Belt Memory, but what advice do you have for somebody right now that's looking to sharpen their axe a little bit more?
Yeah, you know, anybody who wants to learn anything. I mean, you may say, well, Ron, I don't really have any interest in learning memory training. Instead, what I want to learn is computer programming, or I want to learn languages, or I want to learn how to become an internet marketer. I really don't want to learn memory training. I don't want to become a memory nerd. My answer to that would be, well, that's great. I want you to learn internet marketing, or I want you to learn how to speak Spanish. I want you to learn all these other things. And you don't have to become a memory nerd or a memory champion or anything like that. But what role do you think memory is going to play in your ability to learn all those other things? Mm-hmm. So this is just a little bitty skill that you can learn that's going to accelerate the rate at which you can learn anything else. So memory may not be really what you want to get good at. What you really want to get good at is Spanish, or what you really want to get at is good at is internet marketing or whatever. This is a tool that right now, if you're looking to to sharpen the saw and you're looking just to use this time as a time to learn, see memory training as the base or the foundation for which you can learn more. And I'll give you one quick example on it. Let's say you go to the grocery store and you don't get a grocery cart. You just walk in the grocery store and you get everything that you can carry. Well, maybe you got 6, 7, 8 items in your arms. But you get a shopping cart and you go through there, you could put 100 items in there. That's what improving your memory will allow you to learn whatever you want to learn more rapidly and learn more of it.
You know, one of the things, Ron, when I first watched you on stage, I remember you talked about telling these types of stories and walking around, and I'm like, man, that just seems like a lot of extra work. And then you said something that was really, for me, it was really just this aha, where we're talking about memorizing names. And I'm like, well, what kind of story do you make to memorize names? And you said something along the lines of this. Most people are so scatterbrained, they're just not paying attention. So the reason a lot of times people don't memorize names is literally walking up, oh, I don't even know who I just met. You said a lot of times what I do is very intentional. What's their name? What's their name? What's their name? And you'll say that a couple of times, shake their hand and make up the story in your head. That alone right there it's a memory technique to help remember names. But just me describing that, I've connected to a whole bunch of people. People are like, man, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names. And I'm like, actually, I got a friend of mine who's an international memory expert. You know what he said? What's that? And then I'd repeat that story. It was such a great opening line to lots of other conversations. So the memory's great. But some of these techniques that you've taught that have compound for me, great ways to connect with individuals that have absolutely taken off my business. It's a great foundation. So again, you'll see the belt.live / memory. You'll see that up on your screen as well. Ron, question for you, sir. It is 2020. Things are a little crazy. We'll run this interview for all of 2020. As the memory guy who's traveling the world, it's really interesting right now. What's something that you're working on? What are you focusing on? What are you sharpening your skills on?
Well, you know what, I'm happy to be talking to you because one thing I'm focusing on is more the internet, more learning internet marketing. You know, YouTube. I got a decent sized YouTube channel, but I guess my goal is not YouTube. My goal is to sell more online, and YouTube is a tool. But you know, that's one thing that I'm really focused on right now because I have seen as a speaker, you know, I had a good sizable income coming in April, and still hopefully maybe not. I've had 50% of my one. I've had one of my meetings canceled for May. I've had all my meetings for April canceled, and so I'm really being in the mindset right now that I need to be more selling online. That's the first thing I'm focusing on. The next thing I'm focusing on is I was, you know, just getting scatterbrained the other day. And so I picked up a copy of the United States Constitution, which I've already memorized. I memorized it last year. It's just not fresh in my brain. And this doesn't sound really nerdy or whatever, but I'm going back through that, rememorizing the Constitution. But I'm not just doing it for fun, although it is very relaxing for me. I'm going to, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this or not, but I'm going to put a blindfold on me so you can't see my eyes. So it's well, you can't see my eyes, but so it's obvious I'm not reading a teleprompter. I'm going to put a blindfold on, like a sleep mask, and then I'm going to do like a live Facebook video where I just verbally say the entire United States Constitution, then try to sell some stuff that way.
Yes, Ron, inside of the belt method, which again you're getting access to, is video number 3. We'll talk about specifically how to run Facebook Lives where you set them up like an infomercial. This is exactly what you can do because you do this from stage. Basically, you do the Facebook Live like an infomercial. You run just an ad behind it. So you just run that live as an ad. Literally, it's kind of like, Ron, here's the best way to explain this. So this is in the training, but I'd love to explain this concept to you, especially in this recording. So I go to a Tony Robbins event, and I love watching people speak on stage. So like when I went to that first Jeffrey Combs event, it lit this like fire of inspiration behind me, and where I'm like, ooh, I want to know how all the magic elixir works, the back decision table. Like I want to know all that. So I go to a Tony Robbins event, and everyone's hugging each other, kissing each other, telling each other what they like about their mom and stepdad, whatever. I'm standing from the back watching. It is very interesting. And Tony, speaks for 10, 12 hours a day, and you can't break 2,500 people. So Tony will go off the stage and play a video. I'll never forget this. Tony goes off the stage. This video comes up. It's 20 years old. Hey, everybody, how's everyone doing today? And everyone in the audience, we're doing great. And he's like, how many people here are in state? And they're like, we're in state. And my jaw just hit the ground. And I'm like, these people are talking to a 20-year-old video.
Right.
What the? Hang on a second. So I came home to help out a client, and you'll see this inside of the training. It's called Helping Hurting Moms. And essentially what Helping Hurting Moms was is an organization that would help moms whose kids were addicted to drugs, strung out on the streets, and they sold some kind of some self-help guides. No one's going to like a fan page because kids strung out on the street, you feel guilty, alone, and ashamed. So how do you market that stuff? Well, let's go with Tony Robbins' example. Let's have you tell a story for 10 to 15 minutes, asking questions throughout the story. And what does this mean to you? What do you have in your house? What would be the fourth thing that you would peg? Just go ahead, write it down in the comments below. We're not faking anything. But what happens is in the Facebook Live, when you read this, what happens is people are watching you. They're amazed because you're seeing the Constitution, scroll on by, you're doing this, comment 1 if I'm off a word, comment 2 if I'm off 2 words, and you're not off any. So there's zero comments. Literally, we have Facebook Lives that have been running for 4+ years that'll show up in someone's news feed because of the way that we target that I'll show you. And people are like, I have no idea how I tripped on this, but I ended up watching you for 20 minutes. I didn't even realize that you had products and services and whatnot. So absolutely, you like to do those Facebook Lives, you put a couple of dollars behind it. I'll show you where to target it. It doesn't take much. I'd personally love to help you on that one because unequivocally, I know your stuff works. Well, your stuff always works. So we can talk more about that offline, but my program will show you very specifically how what you do on stage, you can record in your house, start to run right now. Actually, when I'm done here, I'm going to do so actually, I'll just tell you this. When I'm done with this recording, I'm going to go on to my Facebook page and I'm going to record a video about doing an interview with you and the 35 other interviews that I've already done so far. And I'll probably talk for 10 or 15 minutes. And what I'm going to say is, hey, by the way, if you haven't already done so, make sure that you join the summit. You can opt in right here down below, but I'm not going to say a date, just like we haven't talked about dates in this video. So what will happen is this video will always run. They could watch, the entire thing for 20 cents, or they could watch the entire thing, become interested and click on it to become a lead, or watch the entire thing and buy. So yeah, you don't have to get aggressive in sales. You just do what you've always done. And I'll just show you how to structure it in a way where you have a frequent call to action throughout the video, and they'll just run perpetually for you, making you some money, sir.
Well, man, I want to, you clearly know what you're talking about. And, and I don't, as far as that goes, I need to get better. So I'm all ears.
It's been great. So, okay, Ron, kind of wrap this up because you're time sensitive, and I know that you're busy as well too. There's some people that I'm going to connect you with overall for some YouTube stuff that we're learning, sharpening our axe and running. So I can't stress this enough. I've already said this. I've already purchased all of Ron's products. I highly encourage you to do the same thing too. This thing's what, $200 you said? Is that right?
It is. I've wrestled with making it $500, $1,000 before, but really I think that's a good price point. Anybody who wants to improve their memory, there's really no excuse. So yeah, it's kind of almost a no-brainer.
It should be hands down. I do courses where lots of people have courses. It should be $1,000 course. Again, hands down, it should be. But the thing is when you start to tell better stories because of better research, that's what you've heard a lot of the other experts say as you're watching these recordings. A lot of the experts talk about the research. Man, if you're able to recall some of these stories because some of the memory things that Ron is teaching you, the copy is all behind the stories and marketing is all behind the stories. And what Ron is literally telling you is, hey, use creative stories to help memorize things. It's only going to improve your business overall. It'll help improve your relationships. So again, thebelt.live/memory. Ron, sir, I will reach out. You get access to my courses. I mentioned there's a couple of people from YouTube I'll want to send out. Just kind of show you some stuff after we're done with this. Any parting words that you have for people? Like this has been really, 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 really good. And I cannot wait to show my tribe this.
Well, my parting words would be anybody can improve their memory. However good you think your memory is right now, multiply that by 10 and you're probably still not even close. You will astound yourself within 20, 30 minutes of training. You should be able to hear 20 or 30 words and say them forwards and backwards. And then I say number 17 and what's 17. My next parting words were say, it's always great to see you again. You have so much knowledge. I appreciate you sharing with me. And my last parting words is, how in the world did we both end up with an Einstein picture that is so awesome?
Well, my original product when I first started met you was Social Media Ad Genius. I have that thing hung up wherever I go, wherever I work. It always sits behind me. I'm even a little crazy when we had an office, and I'm like, no, nothing blocks that picture. When my girlfriend moved in, and I'm like, Einstein always has his place. It even lights up. It's very special and very important.
That's crazy, man. It's like I'm looking at your video and I feel like I'm looking in my condo. So awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Seriously, this is Ron. This has been really, really good. I've been wanting to work with you for a long while. This is going to be a great way to serve a lot of people. I wish you the very, very best. I think, in my opinion, the next 12 months, you are going to help a ton of kids and family members really improve their memory and have some great stories. And I cannot wait to catch up with you about that as well, too. So this is great.
I appreciate all that. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ron. Take care. Bye.
All right.